right. So we are here at the Fraud Fighter Conference. This is June 2026. I have Dr. Frank here. And Dr. Frank, why don't you tell us the adventure you've been on for the last couple of weeks and where that has led you?
So about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago now, I got a call from Mike Lindell, and he said, I'm sending you the telephone number for a translator in Korea. I want you to talk to her. So I took Jennifer's call. She's the translator. And she said, we have a team of election experts, and we're monitoring the June 3rd election. They have their national election on June 3rd, and we'd like you to come and work with our team. And they have an expert team of fraud people there. Would you please come? And I agreed to go. And honestly, I thought I was going to be going there, sitting with my computer, downloading data, analyzing voter rolls like I do in America. But that's not at all what happened. Instead, Chu Hyun, the leader of the team, took me and gave me a tour of basically how their elections work. I observed their early voting. I observed the day of election. I saw how they run their whole election. So I could tell from beginning to end, which is not the right time now, but I could take you through the entire process of how they do their elections. So I was expecting and preparing and downloading data and spreadsheets and get everything ready so that the day of the election, I'd be able to say, aha, gotcha. Except there's an organization there called the NEC, the National Election Commission. They majorly messed up. They botched the election day election. They didn't send enough ballots to all the provinces around the country. And so people were saying, well, send us more ballots. And they said, no, we're just going to count what we got. It was like brutally obvious election fraud, voter suppression. So it's not even like we had to come out and make an argument. We didn't have to come out and say, oh, yeah, we have this sophisticated algorithm operating where there's election fraud. No, they just said, screw you. We're not going to count your votes. That's basically what happened. So the people, and I'm not talking about just a few, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people are protesting right now. They've come out of the woodwork
Right this second
as we're sitting here. And a key thing to understand is that there's a leader. I would say he's like the de facto leader, Hwang Kyo-ahn, former prime minister and acting president of Korea. He's officially my host while I was there. Wow. And he started the Freedom and Innovation Party. And he used to be head of the party that we would think of as like the Republican Party, but it's gone left. And so he left that and started a new party called the Freedom and Innovation Party. And that party is the de facto leader of this movement. And to give you a feeling what that's like, when you have like 50,000 people surrounding the Seoul Stadium and they won't let any officials in or out, I could explain why that's happening there, but that's where they have all these ballots and the people won't let the ballots out. They're saying, if you don't give us more ballots, we're not going to let you count any of them. The people have risen up. Wow. It's amazing. Well, we walk up with former Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, and it's like heart in the Red Sea. The people welcome us in. They're chanting, USA, USA. We go up, we stand at the front, and they love us, and they're desperate for us to intervene. So really, it was an amazing experience for me to see the people rising up to address elections. How long have I been working in America to make that happen? Okay. And here they handed it to us on a silver platter. So I think there is lots of history in this, and I don't want to get into that. I think we need to interview Mr. Hwang, but that's sort of the context of you asked me. That was why I was there. And it's been amazing to work with him. We have pictures of him, and we should talk about this. Maybe he can describe it a little bit. One of the small polling stations that didn't get enough ballots, that's kind of where it started. They said, we're not going to give you our ballots if you don't give us more. And all the people, they live in high rises. They kind of live in communal high rises. They all just came down and surrounded that building. And Mr. Hwang went there and has led the movement. We have pictures of police pushing them around with shields and everything. So
wow.
It's a pretty impressive thing. Nonviolent, they're unarmed people. Even the police they carry weapons most of the time. They just stun guns. So,
sure, you've come to America for a reason. Could you tell us why you've come out here?
I came here because the freedom of Republic of Korea is on the verge of collapsing. The free democracy of the Republic of Korea is on the verge of collapsing. So we want our ally, our closest and strongest ally, the United States, to be together with us so that we could fight together to save Korea. The biggest issue is election fraud. And since the Fraud Fight Summit that I am participating today and tomorrow also covers election fraud, I'm here to speak about election fraud. If we could have fought against election fraud and protect the democracy, the liberal democracy of Korea on our own, we would have done it, but our efforts are limited. That's why we need the help from our strong ally, the United States. And I have come here because there was an opportunity of participating in the Fraud Fight Summit. And that is partly the reason why I'm here.
This seems to be a worldwide epidemic happening right now because we've had this problem in the United States. We have Dr. Frank here, who's one of the experts that's been doing this for years in terms of uncovering the fraud. I've also heard other countries. I've heard countries in Eastern Europe. There was just I'm of Armenian descent. I just heard there was a election in Armenia, same sort of thing where they're convinced that there was fraud. Why is this happening in so many countries around the world? And is this do you think this is an organized effort to steal our elections?
In the big picture, China is using election fraud in order to take over countries. So through election fraud, they're able to create and maintain a system that they want through power. So election fraud is an easy way to maintain and manipulate their place in power. So once they got the taste of it, it is obvious that they cannot let it go. I believe that election fraud began around 2010. A lot of people are not aware that election manipulation is carried out electronically. So because people are largely ignorant, this election fraud is happening in many places.
So this is all coming from China, and that's a question, whether it's happening in the United States, whether it's happening in South Korea, other countries in the world. This is all coming from China, you think?
At present, I believe that China is reaching extensively in all corners of the world in order to expand its power. And the United States is in return responding extensively.
So in South Korea, there's an organization based. It's called AWEB, AWEB. And Chu-hyun took me there and taught me about AWEB. I have several papers describing it. What essentially it is, it's the Association of World Election Bodies. They have 120 member countries, and it's essentially election fraud cartel. It's like, we'll teach you how to steal every election in your country. They've been exporting the electronic machines, the software, the strategies all around the world. That's why they all look the same.
And it's all originating from China?
Yes, and they use AWEB as their kind of distribution point because it's outside of the CCP. And so you can fly a plane out of Korea every day, no big deal. And in fact, a lot of the ballots that have been reported to have been, and IDs that were like last year, Cash Patel mentioned that 1 million fake IDs and 1 million fake ballots were seized outside of Detroit. And he says they were made in China. Guess where they shipped from? In other words, it's become like an international hub for election fraud and its central control. So Korea is coming to America and saying, you guys, we need your help because they've taken over our government. We don't have any legal recourse. We have any government recourse, and Election Fraud Central is here. Please come help us. We'll help you. Let's work together. That's why they're here, to request that. Let's make this union. Let's make this alliance stronger.
So they built an alliance for this fraud, and now we're counteracting it here by creating an alliance to counter the fraud.
Yes, and we need Trump to help us with that. We need our federal government to realize, first of all, they need to know this is happening. It's not being covered in the legacy media at all, which is why they came. because we're bringing it to the front, and we need everybody to know this actually just happened, guys. We shed 36,000 lives in South Korea to drive the communists back, and what they could take back with bullets, they've now taken back with ballots. And we need to know that this is a real war, that it just happened, that we just lost South Korea. Are we going to fight this war? Are we going to engage it or not? That's why they're here.
Okay, I got a question here about this organization you're talking about. It almost sounds like there's undertones of a CDC, World Economic Forum. I mean, is that accurate in terms of they have this outside China force that is now trying to manipulate elections worldwide?
Yes, AWEB was founded and funded by guess who? Soros, and by the NEC, which is the National Election Commission of which is totally corrupt in South Korea. And USAID was one of the big funders, which is why Trump cut that back. So guess what? There's no surprise here, is there? We need to engage this war, which is why I'm here, bringing these people here.
Wow. So, I mean, in the past, war was conducted with weapons, and now it seems as though they have changed the way they're conducting war against nations. So, would you consider, in better times in South Korea, would this be an act of war in terms of manipulating South Korea's elections through China?
I believe that it is an act of war. And today we are engaged in a war of systems, whether we'll fall into communism or protect free democracy. And our counterpart is using election fraud as its weapon. For example, during the Moon Jae-in leftist administration, there was a general election, and the Conservative Party only won 103 seats, while the Democratic Party won 180 seats, which is unheard of. As the majority party, it gained power over the National Assembly and was able to pass legislations.
They have a party system, so they don't just elect people, they also vote for a party, and then parties get numbers of seats. It's sort of like a parliament, and so they decide. And he's right. It's ludicrous that there could be a majority of left-leaning people in this parliament, and it's called the National Assembly, when 9 out of 10 people in the country are anti-communist. Yet now it's dominated by people that are leftists. That's his point. And I think it's significant that the former prime minister of South Korea just said it's an act of war. It's fifth generation warfare, absolutely.
Ultimately, they're using election rigging in order to topple free democracy and communize South Korea. Of course, there are people on the right and people on the left in the United States, but Korea is unique to our United States because North Korea, the communist North Korea, had invaded South Korea and induced lots of suffering. So most Koreans do not want South Korea, to fall into communism. So that is why they're using electronic manipulation in election fraud in order to rig elections, in order to communize South Korea.
The media is a big problem over here in the United States. I mean, if we had a free and fair media and it wasn't just propaganda, our election fraud would have come to light much sooner. But it's been slow because the media does not cover these stories. How is it in South Korea?
One of the very first thing the anti-state forces that are behind election fraud, one of the first things that they took control was the press. Most of the press in South Korea lean left or say that they're neutral but actually leftist. And the legacy media do not carry conservative messages, and it doesn't cover any news on rallies that number 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. But for leftist rallies, even if they only have 1,000 people, they give it a full coverage. They're deceiving the people and blocking the values of conservatism from being shared.
Can you imagine? There are hundreds of thousands of people out protesting, and it's not on the news. I mean, that's the legacy media there. It's very similar here, but they have a very active, one of the things that's different about their culture than ours is everybody's a podcaster. It's like they are all electronically talking to one another. So if you go on X, you'll just see, thousands and thousands of videos being taken. So they're sort of their own news, if that makes sense. Americans are more dependent on, tuning into their favorite podcaster once a day or something like this. But no, they're very active. And so that's a little different. So that's gaining fuel, which is why the government is now cracking down on that. And they just while I was there, they made it illegal for 18 and younger to be on X.
Because I got to ask something about that, because simultaneously, England, which is 16...
simultaneously. And so you're starting to see this is not an isolated event. This is the fulfillment of a color revolution. It's the fourth stage of a color revolution that's now succeeding, but it's the same thing happening everywhere else. What did they just pass in Colorado? They made it illegal to investigate elections. They made it illegal for citizens in Colorado to look into elections. Guess what they're doing right now, next month in Korea? It's the same playbook everywhere.
I mean, how do you think this came about, where what's happening here, the same thing is also happening in South Korea?
The first reason is because people do not fight. If their freedom of speech or the freedom of press is infringed, they have to fight. However, when the government oppresses them, they turn silent. And the leftist is good at propagandas, which are false. And they coin words that sounds nice, and they also try to lure people with words and campaigns. And the leftists keep on offering populist policies, giving away money for free. Conservatives say that's wrong, but still they accept. So these are used as weapons of leftists and as threats to the conservatives. Historically, communism has been proven wrong through the disembarkment of the Soviet Union, but still people are holding on to it. Many people know the truth, but since they do not fight to protect themselves, they are unable to win against the fight against leftists, which are small in number.
I mean, you guys fought like a very serious war against communism, and it seems as though now, in a backdoor way, they're allowing communism back. I guess my question is, the children of individuals or the grandchildren that fought in the war, aren't these individuals, like the modern generation, the young people, realizing that all the bloodshed that happened to fight for freedom is being lost through this backdoor method?
So when I was in Korea, what I noticed is the older people, 60, 70, 80 years old, remember the war, and they love Americans, and they know, hey, you came and you fought for us and you defended our liberty, and they're awake and they see themselves losing their country. The next group down, the next generation, are sort of like the children of the greatest generation in America. They're spoiled. They've gone to the Western schools. They're exactly, and they think, oh, it's all about money and success, and they're distracted by that, and they're all educated in Western kind of thought and left-leaning thought. And so the older folks see the threat of communism. The middle group, they just want their coffee and their lattes. And then the younger group, they're coming alive dramatically. They don't like the government telling them what to do, and they haven't had a chance to get too corrupted by education. And so what's so interesting when you watch these massive demonstrations, just a few nights ago, 200,000 college students went on a march. That's unheard of in America. So they're waking up. So I think we've got an interesting situation where you got the old who remember the war and the young who realize they're losing their liberties. And the middle class is busy the middle group is busy, making a living or whatever. So that's kind of the shape of the demonstration.
where do you see this problem fixing itself in the near future? What do you envision will happen in the near future with this problem?
South Korea is headed toward dictatorship. So because it's a dictatorship, they are passing laws that they want, and they are suppressing people who are dissenting, and they are using people who fulfill their wishes. Ultimately, the leftist has seized all three powers, and the conservatives were not able to respond appropriately. So I think I'm virtually the only one, along with everyone here, everyone who is also fighting together with me, fighting against these anti-state forces. So there are parties like the Democratic Party and the PPP in Korea. However, they're not fighting at all. That's why I have set up a new party called the Freedom and Innovation. And as I mentioned before, the Freedom and Innovation is actually powered a lot by the young people. There are about 6 cases where the chair of the council in city, provinces are young people in their 30s. And they're also good at fighting. Out of a lot of the people who are demonstrating at Tamsil in the Olympic Park are party members of Freedom and Innovation. However, since it's a relatively new party, we are small in number. However, that doesn't mean that we are not playing our part. We are doing our utmost to protect and save the freedom in Korea. For example, we are at the very front lines of election fraud. There's no other party that fights against election fraud, and we engage in activities that other parties do not like, fighting against anti-state forces. I'm a Christian, and our party also are boldly fighting to protect the churches. Other parties are not protecting the churches, which are being oppressed in Korea. However, we are doing our best, but we have our limits. That's why we want the help and support from United States. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because we are blood allies and we would like the United States to also help Korea. Dr. Frank knows about the recent developments of South Korea better than anyone else.
There's something else that's very different about there than here that I think Americans need to understand. 140 years ago, there was a massive religious revival, based in North Korea, the capital, Yantang, and spread all over. A massive awakening. It's a religious awakening. A Christian awakening, exactly. Then when the Korean War happened, and we drove the communists back up above the 38th parallel, it became illegal to be Christian, and the North Koreans slaughtered all of the Christians. So it's illegal. If you're a Christian in North Korea, they slaughter you. Okay. So now think about Southern Korea all the way down. All these churches, they see communism as a tangible threat to their existence. If communism comes in, then they will be slaughtered like it was in the North. So starting the Freedom and Innovation Party, it's not just a movement of the young people. It's also churches, because they see communism as a threat to their existence. So that's an element that is very different than in our country. I don't think our churches see communism as a direct threat to their existence, but it is very real thing. I was at a Methodist church there on a Sunday morning, huge Methodist churches. They have 7 services. I mean, it's like a massive church. They're 10 minutes south of the border and they feel it right there. They feel the threat, and they know if that line pushes down in whichever way, that it's a big. So that's a big element to this, and that's one of the things I like about his party is he recognizes these elements. There's one other thing that's another interesting twist. The largest offshore military base in the world is in South Korea. It's Fort Humphreys. And so that's a big deal because we put that there to fight back the communism. But we were fighting back to communism with a military presence. So what did the enemy do? They beat us with fifth generation warfare. What they couldn't take with bullets, they took with ballots. And so we really had the wrong defense. So what they're proposing is very exciting to me, because as you correctly pointed out, this is happening all around the world. Brazil, Venezuela, Peru. It's happening Armenia. It's happening everywhere. We need to engage the fifth generation war. Sure, we've got aircraft carriers and we're shooting bombs on people, but we need to also engage. And they're saying, please join us. Let's join together in this war.
When you say that, and this is for both of you, when you say engage in the fifth generation warfare, are we talking about culturally overcoming the communist propaganda that is influencing this march to dictatorship?
That would be one part of it. But how about this? We know that as former Prime Minister Hwang mentioned, that they use electronic manipulation. What if we said as a country, we're not going to recognize your illegitimate government if you use those machines? That would be fifth generation warfare. We would be saying, you can't do this. We're going to make you cheat in other ways. But in other words, we can fight on that information war front. And we have all kinds of levers we can use. Samsung is there. And we buy our chips for our military stuff from them. And most of our laptops and Samsung phones, they're made there. And Hyundai is big. So in other words, we have economic levers. So we have economic, political, we have other ways of fighting too. We can simply say, if you're going to run your elections in this non-transparent way, we're not going to recognize your new government. So it's, in other words, there are other ways to fight.
Is it? And I just have a question for that. So the goal would be to have the president of the United States, after this fraudulent election, say we're not recognizing this new government, and diplomatic pressure for them to basically clean up their election fraud.
That would be fighting the fifth generation war without bullets. Wow. If we don't do that, what are we going to do? Just sit around and watch nation after nation fall like dominoes? What are we going to do? We can't fight that with bullets. We have to fight that with another type of warfare, fifth generation warfare. So that's what they're proposing. And I love these people. They invited me over there and they said, please, let's combine forces. They see it. They feel the imminent threat, and they just watched their country go through a color revolution. And they just lost their country. They're saying, are you going to help us or not? You shed blood here before. Hey, come on, let's go. And then also, while we're at it, let's take out AWEB and let's address this globally. They are inviting us to that fight. And I think America's been slow to that fight. They're ahead of us.
Yeah. Now, this sounds like a global criminal conspiracy. I mean, that's what it sounds like, because when you're talking about what's happening in Korea with the people being influenced and people being docile and people forgetting the price of tyranny,
yes.
Seems like it's very similar to what's happening in this country. I mean, what could you tell us about like how long this plan has been in progress, and has it been all coordinated? Because it feels like it's all coordinated.
So I just read a book. It's called The Silent Coup, written by someone who worked for the National Intelligence Service for 35 years. He's an insider, and he's documented all of the strategies that were used to infiltrate every branch of their government and to take over their government. And they have succeeded. And he walks you through. That book's going to appear next month. In fact, he gave me one of his draft copies. I was reading it on the plane coming here. It's illuminating. And for me, as an expert in America of our elections, watching them so carefully for so many years, I see the exact same strategies being used here as they used there to take over the country. If we don't wake up here, we're going to be in the same mess they are. And we kind of already are. We've already lost the state of Washington and Colorado, and I'm fighting really hard in Oregon. We might be getting that one back, but I'm fighting with fifth generation tactics rather than bullets. So, but I think as a country, I think we're slow to awaken. And I think we were just given it to us on a silver platter in South Korea, because the NEC, the corrupt government agency that runs their elections, just told everybody, sorry, we're going to just keep the election the way it is, even though you all didn't get ballots. It's just like in your face. And when you talk to young people and you talk to them in their face, what do? they rise up. And so it was like they gave us a favor. Now we need to transfer some of that energy into Americans and help us realize. And hopefully tomorrow we've got a little stunt planned for tomorrow when we have them on the stage for this interview at the Fraud Fighter. We're going to have a little demonstration. We have some local Koreans that are going to come show us how to protest.
Wow, interesting. So, what do you see as like you're saying South Korea is heading into dictatorship? I mean, how long is that process, and do you feel like there's a chance of saving South Korea from falling into dictatorship?
I believe the South Korea is now a dictator state. The judiciary power, the legislative power, the executive power are not functioning. Only Lee Jae-myung, the current president, is maneuvering the government. For example, in the judiciary, they're trying to manipulate by enacting new laws. For instance, you're able to have 3 trials, and that's the basis of free democracy, going to court once and then appealing, then going to the Supreme Court. But now they're trying to enact a law where they could have subsequent trials.
Until they keep trying you until they get you. And if they don't like you, they can sue you for something that you did in the past that you're already acquitted of. In other words, it's a way for them to lawfare everybody into jail.
The current government is trying to eradicate the prosecution organization itself. The prosecution was actually created during the French Revolution, and it was seen as innovative. It was a policy to play the role of a check against police and court. So Montesquieu said it is the best policy that has been created by human beings, but it has been scrapped. And they have also enacted very strange laws, like the law against distorting laws.
The law against distorting laws. I mean, they're basically interpreting the laws any way they want now. It is a dictatorship. He's right. And the reason they feel desperate is because they have no recourse. You can't elect them out of office because they're cheating on the elections, and you're stuck now with a totally corrupt government. And what are they going to do? They have no recourse. That's why they feel desperate for our help.
Brazil sounds like similar to what's happened in Brazil, maybe.
And if they cannot change the law, they just revise the rules. So there are laws underneath, there's order and then rules. So they just change the rules to suit their needs. And the court rationalized these decisions, saying that it's correct. I cannot enumerate all the examples, but one of the most oppressive laws is the law trying to close down religious organizations like churches. They took control over virtually everything else except the church. So they're trying to oppress church and try to make it submit by enacting this law. During the pandemic, the government stopped people from gathering to worship and punishing people for worshiping together. Now they're starting to investigate megachurches in Korea. They have carried out search and seizures in churches, summoned the pastors, and in some cases, incarcerated the pastors. They're trying to make the last force, the churches, powerless, and they're enacting a law that enables churches to be closed down and dissolved. What other things could be dictatorship if these are not a form of dictatorship?
It seems almost with what you're mentioning about Christianity, there seems to be a battle between good and evil, servitude versus freedom. That seems to be the ultimate goal, is to make everybody slaves.
They're trying to make people hard to resist or resist against the government.
They're making it so people can't resist, or they risk their churches getting shut down, or they go to prison.
I'm just looking at all these factors, right? Where they're trying to, globally, there seems to be a march towards servitude. Yes. We have AI coming now, which is now monitoring people. I mean, seems to be we are at a very risky time in all of humanity where I just don't know how it doesn't go into a very dark place, potentially eventually violent place, because people that are made into slaves will revolt. Eventually they're going to revolt. Where do you see, and this is more of a global perspective, but where do you see South Korea going, and where do you see the rest of the world going in this generation?
Well, there'll be two groups, a group of countries that have people who resist and the other group of countries where people will submit. But historically, Korea has always fought, even amid difficulties, in order to uphold justice. And recently, in the Korean War in 1950, all the churches got together to pray in this national crisis. And through prayer, help came in the way of the United States. And that's how we were able to overcome. And during the Japanese annexation period, many people lost their lives for the independence of Korea. And many people also fought for the independence of Korea. And one of which is Lee Seung-man, the founding president of the Republic of Korea. In the Joseon dynasty, they had a system called 의정부. So there were 3 heads of ministers who were able to take the power of the king. Although Korea is experiencing a crisis moment, I believe that Korea will be able to rise up and be saved. So in order to enable this further, I believe we need help from the United States. We need the powerful voice of the United States back. A lot of people are concerned, and I believe that the United States have to intervene decisively. Korea could be revived by Christians who are awake, politicians who are awake, and also by being together with the United States. And you could see a model example in the people who have gathered to demonstrate and protest around the Handball Gymnasium in Olympic Park, crying out for freedom and their rights to vote. They have become a formidable force that nobody had foreseen, and I believe they will be the people who will protect the freedom in Korea. And Dr. Frank came personally and gave lots of encouragement and strength to the people there.
It was amazing. Just being an American, the hope it gave them just to walk into a crowd with 50,000 people and they're like, it's USA, USA, and they're flying American flags and Korean flags. It's awesome. So he's right. There's hope, but they really do need us. They need some help and we should, but I just wanted to repeat something he said that just blew me away. I wrote it down and I'm going to put this in my presentations. He said, there will be countries that will resist, and there will be countries that will submit. And then he said that South Korea is going to be one of those that resists. They love their liberty. They love their freedom. And so do we. But we're not resisting very much. No. And so I think that's what needs to happen. We need to wake up and resist alongside with our other resistors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. So, I mean, in summary, they're basically trying to make South Korea North Korea. Is that accurate? Like, that's. Do you mind asking? Like, they're trying to make South Korea become North Korea, more or less.
Well, North Korea has been preparing for a long time. Actually, they tried to communize South Korea through the Korean War, and after they virtually lost the war, within 10 years, they started to prepare to communize South Korea by indoctrinating the young people through education. And they've been very systematic and well prepared. So it'll be a tough fight. It'll be a difficult fight, but we will continue to fight so that we will be able to keep democracy in South Korea.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Over the last 30 years, we have seen the value of our work diminish and the price of real assets like land and homes increase to the point that for most people under the age of 40, the hope of owning their own home has been lost. The response of governments around the world to the 2008 global financial crisis and COVID was to defer the cost of these events to the future. They did this by printing money, in effect selling our futures to pay for their bad decisions. This is corporatism, not capitalism. Money printing didn't hurt those in power, nor those who supported them, because they had real assets, property, shares in businesses that rose in price to match the inflation of money supply. But for most of us around the world, it sold our future for a fraction of its value. In response to this, a mysterious figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin. He wanted to create a currency that could not be printed on command, thereby devaluing our labor. A currency that could be traded electronically between people without intermediation, allowing all of us to participate fairly in the economy. But if you tried to buy your groceries with Bitcoin, you'd stand at the checkout for at least 10 minutes, probably hours, waiting for the transaction to process, and the fee would cost you more than the carton of eggs and bag of apples. Bitcoin's limitations meant that it stopped being considered a currency in 2016 and was instead called a store of value. But it opened the door for someone to create a genuine currency that nobody controlled, but everyone could use. That someone is us. We created the Gajumaru blockchain and the Gaju currency. The Gaju is real money you can use, whether that is to buy a loaf of bread, pay for a haircut, buy a t-shirt, in fact buy or sell anything. It is a currency for everyday use. On Gaju Market, anyone can buy and sell any legal goods or services, just like you would on eBay, but at a fraction of the cost. Like Bitcoin, Gajus are mined on a computer. Unlike Bitcoin, mining Gajus does not require specialized equipment, nor huge power supplies. During our protected rollout, you can mine this on everyday computers, like the ones that sit in your home doing nothing for most of the day. We are working to get millions of people like you to mine the Gajumaru and be rewarded with Gajus that you can then use as real money. At the end of 2026, the Gajumaru will open to public mining. By then, we will have brought together millions of people like you to mine the Gajumaru. This will create such powerful combined computing capacity across so many millions of people that the Gajumaru can remain highly decentralized, enabling an economy for the people, by the people. To make all of this possible, we offer a variety of mining packages that combine all of the software and services you need on our website, gajumining.com. The software is simple to install, and there is a step-by-step guide that will get you mining and participating quickly and easily. You can buy those packages now. You can start mining the Gajumaru and being rewarded in Gajus now. Select a suitable mining package from the gajumining.com web store. Install and activate the software on your device and start mining today. This is an opportunity to be part of a movement to restore our humanity, our dignity, our sovereignty, creating a better future for everyone. For the first time in thousands of years, you will directly benefit from your work, your ideas, without being taxed by intermediaries or needing permission to be part of the global economy. We believe that capitalism is I win, you win, we all win, not I win, you lose. That's corporatism. We refuse to pursue venture funding that would demand we play the corporatist game, and chose instead to grow this movement by giving everyone the opportunity to benefit from their contribution to the movement. Just like being able to mine Bitcoin in 2008 or 2008, getting early access to mining the Gajumaru now allows you to mine the greatest number of Gajus and benefit most from being part of this movement. We want to share that with you. We want the whole world to be part of this. We want everyone who cares about our future to get on board and take this from a movement to a reality. We want to see an economy for the people, by the people, now. Join us. Put your fingerprints on humanity's story, our history. Be a leader in the economic emancipation of humanity. It's simple. Go to gajumining.com, select the mining package that's right for you, and get started today.